Good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order on Monday, February 3rd.
Recording in progress.
We're calling the meeting to order on Monday, February 23rd, 2023 for the Administration and Public Works Committee. Will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Reed,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly. Here. Councilmember Harris.
Present.
Councilmember Nusma.
Here.
Councilmember Burns. We have a quorum with 4 present.
All right, so thank you for being here this evening. What I'd like to ask for is a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me. Okay, this is for the approval of January 9th and January 23rd minutes. Will you please call the roll?
You could do a voice vote.
I don't know why I'm all of a sudden choking. I'd like to do a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Excuse me. Yes. Next up, we have public comments, and we'll start with those that are present. Aaron Cohen, are you here? Thank you. We have 6,
Very much. Appreciate it.
and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. I really appreciate the opportunity to pose questions about this issue, this regarding A3, which people regard as pressing, especially in the face of Northwestern's PR and marketing blitz for the new mega entertainment complex. I have 2 questions. One, why the rush? Every decision you guys make regarding NU's plan has really big ramifications for the city and its taxpayers. To consider the scope, depth, and cost of an impact study obviously is no small matter. I think it's important to slow this down and to get it right. Evanston itself is not looking to build a billion-dollar entertainment venue. So we need to consider every impact that such a venture will entail, especially in light of the Evanston Thrive findings, which seem to contradict the notion of clustering everything in one place. Number 2, as Civic Economics said in its proposal, the Tripp-Umbach study reveals precious little about how it developed the inputs to its analysis or the assumptions that were built into the study. Instead, it reveals mostly grand findings and even then provides only totals, failing to reveal direct, indirect, and induced impacts. The question I've asked repeatedly to Northwestern is why will they not release the underlying data of their economic study, Tripp-Umbach, or of the opinion survey that they released? It makes it look like they're hiding something. So I hope that the City Council will ask for that information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Tricia Conley.
Good evening. I'm here to speak tonight about A3, the Hunden Partners contract. I live in the 2nd Ward, and this Northwestern project is bigger than the 7th Ward. If we go the way NU is hoping, this town will be up for grabs. It is so disappointing to know that Paul Z and the Economic Development team has no interest in using other organizations that will do impact studies when we talk so much about small business, legacy businesses, and so forth. Where is the interest in our small business community now? My question to city staff is, have you done the research around other big sports arenas in the country? If so, how many small local businesses continue to exist in those areas? You don't have to travel far. Head down to Wrigleyville. That has changed 3-fold. Tell me, Will we now have hotels, large sports bars, and formula restaurants busting out all over Central Street next? Is this the case of let the free market do its work? Guess what? It doesn't work well for local businesses nor the community that would like to keep things at a human scale. Landlords will be signing up to sell to the highest bidder. More sales tax revenue? That's the big promise. Is this just about revenue no matter what the cost? While Northwestern sits by and continues to tell us they're a nonprofit and we don't pay property taxes. Yeah, Northwestern, believe me, the taxpayers in this town know that real well. Do better, City of Evanston staff. You work for the residents, not Northwestern. It's time to take a second look at our options for an impact study that isn't going to champion pushing a mega event center. By the way, it's time to dust off that lobbying ordinance out of the file cabinet and get working on that right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Charles Smith.
Good evening, guys. Thank you for allowing me to get this opportunity to speak with you.
Hold on one second.
Reboot.
There you go.
The reason I want to address you guys is not because of anything that's on the agenda tonight, but what's been on the agenda in the past. In the past, you have received packets of information regarding the Jens Jensen lease. And in that packet, there has been a list of what City Attorney Cummings refers to as a list of concerns. And the problem with this list of concerns is that it was published in these documents without any consultation with Jens Jensen Gardens. Never had an opportunity to address them, to clear them up. A lot of them are misstatements, misunderstandings, and just plain inaccurate. And have never been discussed with me or anyone with Jens Jensen. One of the most egregious of these is it says that the current lease grants Jens Jensen exclusive rights to use the premises. That is a term of art. It's in every lease. But the truth is, on the very first page of the lease, there's a section called use of premises, which clearly refers to resolutions and regulations of the City of Evanston that provide for open space and a community center. I'll read to you exactly what we gave our attorneys to enter into the lease.
You have 30 seconds.
I'm going to try and go fast. Jens Jensen will maintain a calendar of use for the lawn areas. Priority will be given to Jens Jensen, the Ecology Center. All other users must be approved by JJDE. But it says third-party users must get a special event permit from the City of Evanston. Third-party users must comply with all the laws of the City of Evanston and the state. Recreation and Community Services Department. Third-party users must have all required permits, licenses, event insurance as required by the city. Off-site parking may be required. Anyway, what it basically says is that all the licensing required for state front parks, whether it be for a tent or to serve food or liquor, they have to go to the City of Evanston to get those.
Okay.
Oh, am I over?
I'll give you
Anyway,
5 more seconds.
5 seconds. So the point is that under Jens Jensen, it will remain as an open park operated for the benefit of the community, and that's a good thing.
Thank you for your time. Next up is Mary Rosinski.
Hi, Mary Rosinski. I'm here to talk on A3 also. I would hope that you do not approve that contract with Hunden. I think, or if it is approved, that you have the civic engagement group also work with them for community engagement. This is a proposal from Northwestern, only came out about 10 days ago for the community to do it, and I think that Palsy or somebody had said there's been many meetings. Those meetings have been nothing but Northwestern propaganda, and even our own alderperson did not know at the meeting last week or a week and a half ago that that building was going to be 110 feet tall. Or no, she knew that. She didn't know that in the zoning request that it was going to be asking for regular permit use of up to 10,000 people every day of the week from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, and on the weekends till 11 at night. And that is unbelievable. So I brought, if you haven't read the comprehensive plan from we had this when 1972 and before, from 76. The neighborhoods in this city, every neighborhood in this city is important, and every neighborhood in this city is a building block of our community. And in here, under your values and goals of the comprehensive plan, the growth and evolution of Evanston's institutions should be supported so long as that growth does not have an adverse impact on the residentially zoned adjacent neighborhoods. And this, what is being proposed right now with Northwestern, is unbelievably the biggest, well, I won't say the biggest, but they've been trying to break our zoning code for 60 years, and I've lived in my neighborhood for 30 years, but other people who live all around Evanston will say this is a battle that comes up to commercialize their property to make more money, and they do not help with the infrastructure. So I think when we're doing this, we need community engagement from every ward in this city, because every person and every taxpayer in this city is subsidizing Northwestern University so that they can have their $53 million surplus or $100 million surplus. I'll be done in a second. So I would
You'll
just
get
ask that
10 of
you-
those seconds.
Oh, well, can you turn it off? It's okay. I'm basically
that's fine.
done. But I just I'll be speaking again over the next while. But Hunden, they need to be looking at every aspect of this. This is not a one and done. This is not a time to create an entertainment district complex of 37 acres in the middle of a residential neighborhood without complete community. We didn't decide we wanted a community district now, and Northwestern wants to commercialize. This is huge. This is not an easy little thing, and we need to be going into every community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll, go to participants online. Mike Vasilko.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Vasilko, are you there? There you go.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things. I'm going to kind of follow up on that A3 item, but in a different way. At the last APW meeting, the chair asked for another proposal to be requested. I don't remember the name of the group, but it was a specific group. Requested that Alderman Ravel seek another proposal rather than just come up with this one group as a recommendation. So the Hunden Strategic Partners proposal for the impact study should be compared to something else. And I just know that I don't know, but I don't believe a second proposal was followed up on based on the chair's request. Similarly, unfinished business from the last APW meeting that wasn't on the agenda tonight. I was surprised, and I'd like to know what the rule is. When something is the animal shelter, there was supposed to be a presentation of costs and the bids, et cetera. That was, I guess you ran out of time at the last APW meeting. So what's the rule about that should have appeared on tonight's APW agenda, but it did not. So I'd like to know when that's going to be scheduled for, if not part of this meeting. Thirdly, I've heard a lot, read a lot in the news recently about so-called affordable housing in our community, where a new landlord takes over and all of a sudden rents go up and now people have to start leaving. So I've heard this on several affordable
You have
housing
10
units,
seconds.
and then again on commercial properties. So I'm wondering if there shouldn't be some kind of rent control ordinance considered to protect residents living in affordable housing units before we buy and spend more money on new affordable housing units. And then lastly, real quick, I sent you all, again, a reminder, a request to consider climate action reserve funds for 2023 to use the remaining ARPA funds that are available and move it to that category. But definitely A3 should be off the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Online, David DiCarlo, are you?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you,
you.
Chair, and thank you, council members. So I am here to speak on item A3, and this is the city's second attempt with Hunden, and it's clear at this point that Hunden is not right for the task that's before this committee and the council. I understand you've all received the joint statement from Most Livable City and Community Alliance for Better Government and two Northwestern student groups that were basically, we asked that a qualified firm, and that would include Civic Economics and Community Allies, or there's other firms that we have requested have be looked at as well if city staff would like to go down that road. Since I do have a lot of remaining questions that I think is the reason why Hunden is not right at this point that I wanted to highlight, and hopefully will lead to some discussion among you tonight. One is that this is why is this important task being rushed for a premium price? We're doing this without a formal bidding process. Hunden's price has gone up by $30,000 since its last proposal, and at $98,000, it now costs more than the other two firms' proposal combined that city staff have looked at. Another question is, to echo the comment made by Aaron Cohen, what is NU hiding? One thing that would be critical for any firm to do at this point would be to look into NU's assumptions. And unfortunately, the Hunden proposal is the only one that does not mention looking at the Tripp-Umbach report or any of the underlying data and assumptions that Northwestern has been pitching, and their CSL study, which you've heard referred to, which is a separate report that Northwestern refuses to make public. Instead, apparently city staff is recommending the only proposal that won't attempt to get that critical information. And then another question, doesn't the city want to know what the costs might be to the community? So some of these are hard to quantify, and Community Allies has an approach where they would hold community engagement sessions to try to get at some of those social and community impacts. Unfortunately, Hunden says, this is a quote, they will not report on impacts related to noise levels, in-depth traffic impacts, street and infrastructure deterioration. So why are we spending $100,000 on a quote study that won't even look at community costs?
Thank you.
Finally,
Thank you.
Since our statement yesterday, we have come across information of racially insensitive content that Hunden had on its Twitter account that it's since taken down, and I have screenshots of the material. Any council members or reporters would like that information.
Thank you. All right, that's it, excuse me, for public comment. Thank you all so much. Next, we will move to consent agenda. Are there any items that we wish to have removed from the consent agenda?
A1, please.
A3. A1, A3. That it? Are there any items to pull off consent? All right, so at this time, all I'm hearing is A1 and A3. I'd like a motion to move the consent agenda minus items A1 and A3.
Madam Chair, I'll move the consent agenda, which includes everything except items A1 and A3.
Second.
So I have a motion to accept the consent agenda from Councilmember Nusma and a second from Councilmember Reed to move with consent agenda minus A1 and A3. Are there any questions? Can we have roll call?
Councilmember Reed? Aye. Councilmember Kelly? Aye. Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
It passes. I was supposed to say something else. All has passed unanimously. So up for consideration is A1.
I will move item A1, approval of the City of Evanston payroll, bills list, and credit card activity.
Is there a second? It has been properly moved by Councilmember Reed and seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Are there any questions?
I'm just going to recuse myself because my wife's employer is on the bills list.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions at this time, can we take roll?
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly? Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Abstain.
Councilmember Burns?
The ayes have it with one abstention. A1 passes. Next, we move to A3. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of item A3, which is a contract with Hunden Strategic Partners to provide an independent Ryan Field rebuild economic impact study.
Second.
It has been moved by Councilmember Nusma and seconded by Councilmember Reed. Are there questions? Councilmember Reed?
Well, I guess if you don't mind, Chair, I'd maybe first like to hear from our colleague, and then I'll make remarks.
Most definitely.
If I may. Okay.
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you, committee. I just, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the Hunden proposal, and while I do think it would provide us with a very objective and independent analysis of the economic impacts, given the concern in the community about whether it is really the right group for us and the right proposal, I'd like us to talk about an RFP, and I'd like Paul Zalmazak to come talk to us about what that process would look like.
Most definitely. Please step up.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Paul Zalmazak, City of Evanston, also known as Paul Z. You may have heard that in public comments. Thank you, Councilmember Ravel. Just very brief background to describe why. I promise you, Chair, this will be brief. We were reacting to kind of a rapid pace of the Ryan Field rebuild project, and how it was engaging the community and where we stood on the zoning calendar. When the city manager and I reached out to a number of firms to really help Councilmember Ravel and help the community analyze from an independent perspective what the economic impacts of the new stadium would result. And we wanted that independent study, and we were working at a rapid pace. That's how we got to where we are today. Traditionally, we would, and this is, I'll get into the calendar moving forward, we would draft an RFP that may or may not go before a committee. I would recommend that we take it in front of the Economic Development Committee on the 22nd, if the chair of the committee is open to that. This month, it's Councilmember Burns, or this quarter. That way we have a transparent process about what is in the scope. The following day, so the 23rd, we would hopefully get that published in a newspaper of record and distributed through our procurement process. We give 14 days for the firms to respond with a hopefully quality proposal. Once the bidding closes, the staff, an internal staff panel would review the responses, score them, bring them to the city council for consideration. We think we could probably achieve that on March 27th, and the worst case is the first meeting in April. So ideally, we want to make sure that we are working at a rapid pace, but also a deliberate, considerate pace that represents our community process. And then at that time, at that council meeting, that would be where we go in terms of approving the contract. We think we could do a national search and get a number of firms, including the ones that some of the members of the community have suggested.
Thank you.
And I would just add to that, I really liked the civic engagement piece that was part of one of the proposals, so I'd maybe suggest the Economic Development Committee talk about that as well.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Reed.
With that, I think we can vote So,
Well, I have more questions.
oh, okay.
So you have no
Well-
statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Hunden isn't the right firm for the city of Evanston, so I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma?
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the scope of work that this RFP will require, is that somewhat similar to the Hunden, what we currently have in front of us from Hunden? Identical? Almost the same? A little bit different?
Thank you for the question. I think the answer is it's very close to what you see before you. I think Councilmember Ravel's suggestion to add a kind of an independent community process that is in addition to her ward process, the likely two land use committee meetings, land use commission, P&D, probably multiple, and city council. So I think you'll see some changes. I've also heard from the community what some other potential additions, including maybe noise impact and things like that, although that's kind of a change of scope, because we were talking about doing an economic impact study, not a all impact study. So we have to discuss that probably in committee.
What would that community engagement portion look like? How would that be different from what Councilmember Ravel has been doing with community meetings already?
Well, the proposal that we saw in our packet from the Community Allies, or whatever their title was, envisioned a survey and interviews with Central Street business owners, and then also a process I pictured up in the Parasol Room where there would be facilitated discussions among 7th Ward residents about their feelings about the stadium project, and because I'm not planning to do that kind of a facilitated discussion.
Okay. Just 7th Ward residents?
Yes. Well, that's what the proposal is. And then in terms of the scope that I would suggest for the RFP, looking at the Hunden proposal, there were several tasks that I felt were really important for us, and others that were less important. I've shared that with Paul Zalmazak. And so it would look similar to the Hunden scope of work, but some adjustment to make sure that we're really focusing on the parts that are most important to us.
Okay. And I would like to include on that list, whether it's this RFP or something similar, to make sure we have as much information as we need on traffic and logistics and parking. I think those are very significant concerns.
Yeah, and that might be a different group that does that. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would add that, again, if we're talking about economic impact, it's not the economic impact firm that's going to do a traffic. So it sounds like we might want to do kind of our own independent traffic study, and all can be done. This will not take that much time. I think we were talking about, the RFP process will take, 21 days-ish, come to the council a month, 5 weeks from now. The actual study and the analysis and the outreach, it's probably a 90-day process. That takes us into the summer. And then would we need a separate RFP for a traffic study, or can that be packaged into this one? They might have to sub it out to a traffic company? I think it could be one project team that does a comprehensive impact. I don't know yet. I have to put some thought into that. By the way, an additional option is if you've had a chance to look at Ellen Shepard's proposal for the community engagement process, that is something that's out there today. I think it's a $15,000 proposal. That is within staff's purview in terms of being able to approve a project. We could engage if the council, again, I'm throwing this out there as an option. I don't want to complicate things. It sounds like the community supported that process. It's in the packet. You can review it. We can talk about it later at council. That's an option. We could proceed with the allies side of it, not the impact side of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if we're going to do an RFP, we wait until we have the full RFP before we make any decisions. It's my take.
You done? Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. So I agree with Councilmember Ravel. I do think that Ellen Shepard's proposal to start moving forward, because that takes so much time, and that is, from what I read, that looks like that really is their specialty, is that community outreach piece. So why not? Like, I think for 15,000 that we should go ahead and embark on that. If that is, that is really, my understanding is that is going to be stronger than probably any other firm that would come forward to offer an impact study. And I would, and I just wanted to correct Mr. Facilco, because you did in fact reach out to those, to some other groups, so thank you. And I would just ask that in terms of the scope, that we do take into account some of those concerns like social impact and traffic and all that, and maybe, more changes a little bit this time around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reed?
Didn't. So I think it's clear what's before us is not going to be supported, and I think the RFP discussion is an important one. So I'll just add to that discussion that I would really like to see the, I think it's important to hear from more than just the 7th Ward. If we just, so I certainly would expect that residents of the 8th Ward, and I'm sure other council members would expect that residents of their ward would be able to chime in on this. Because this, as folks have said in public comment this evening, this impacts the entire city.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilmember Kelly?
So I want to second that also. I agree. Citywide meetings, I think, and outreach would be best given the scope of this project. And then also to say, like, I hope that we can also go ahead and include the traffic study as part of the request. Because I think Northwestern's was very short, like 7 or 8 pages. And I think there was another one recently done that we did around Central Street that was like 40 pages. So I think we could get a much more comprehensive report on traffic.
So, point of information, did I hear correctly that you're saying that this RFP itself is going to come to economic development before it goes public, or just the responses?
Councilmember Reed, I'd like to, I'd have to, have to yield to Councilmember Burns as chair of that committee. And what I would do is I would try my best to get a really solid draft ready for that meeting, which I think there's plenty of time to do. I have to check in with procurement to figure out when, if we are to get it to the committee on the 22nd, does it go to the market on the 23rd, or do we go the following week? Either way, we're talking about 7 days. But I would like to recommend as staff that we kind of air out the framework of the RFP publicly.
Okay, then I think this is a good conversation for economic development.
So, as the chair, have we exhausted all opinions before I render mine? Thank you. So, I've heard a couple of things, and I just want to be clear that, for my opinion, that it should be a citywide consideration. I've stood on a platform that we're only separated by air, so it will make a difference. Though it directly impacts the 7th Ward, it does impact the city as a whole. So I am very interested in my ward, and as my fellow council members have indicated, they are interested as well. What I'm hearing is kind of disheartening, and I'm hearing that there's a mistrust of the city and the staff, and I want us to get past that at some point, that if we're getting these recommendations, that there is no benefit to the city. And so I do approve of us moving forward, but I do want us to think about who are the experts in the room. I'm not an expert, though I have a degree in construction. I've never built anything of this magnitude. So I just want us to be conscious of that, and that with us wanting all of these reports, all of these studies, it costs. And then the council will be accused of spending money later. So I do want us to just think about those things when we're given that information from our residents, that it does come with a cost, it does come with some time. So with that said, and seeing no other questions before me, I'd like for roll call.
Councilmember Reed?
No.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Councilmember Harris?
No.
Councilmember Nusma,
No.
Councilmember Ernst.
No.
5 votes of no, A3 does not pass this committee. And we'll go to
I'll move that we refer an RFP for an impact study for the new Ryan Welsh Field to the Economic Development Committee.
It has been moved and properly seconded, moved by Councilmember Reed and seconded by Councilmember Nusma to refer this to Economic Development for RFP. Roll call.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
It has been unanimously decided to move to Economic Development.
D1.
Hold on one second. With that discussion, we now move into items for discussion. D1, referral of amend electric vehicle charging payment structure. Can I have a motion to move discussion for D1?
So moved.
And second.
It's been moved and properly second. Are there questions?
I think we're going to hear from
And I
Kara.
think the city, yep, Kara's going to come before us.
Good evening, Kara Pratt, Sustainability and Resilience Coordinator. Thank you for having me. I have a very brief presentation on our public electric vehicle charging situation. I don't think it's going to work with this. I think we'll have to just scroll through. All right. So I included much of the staff recommendation within the packet. The origins of this item or a referral to City Manager Stowe from, in collaboration with the Parking and Administrative Services team, to reevaluate how we charge money for public electric vehicle charging. If you could scroll to the next, that'd be great. So right now, our policy is not sustainable. We charge just $1, and it's only for parking in those spots that are zoned for EVs. We don't actually charge for the electricity that each vehicle uses. And as we all know, there's a lot of variation these days in the types of vehicles, how fast they charge, exactly how much they're using for each charging session. We have a lot of data from ChargePoint on all those different variables. And that drivers often are not using our charging stations to their most efficient use. They might be leaving their vehicles over time, and our parking enforcers don't always necessarily get there to be able to enforce that limit of time. That's 3 hours right now. So we have a lot of data that indicates people stay for a lot longer with their vehicle plugged in, again, not paying for electricity. And then we also have noticed that some drivers remain in their vehicles and to try to avoid paying for parking, and then we'll just move once an enforcement officer arrives. So we really want to promote vehicle electrification in our community, but we also want to expand our network. And in order to do that, we just need a little bit more efficiency and sustainability in the program. Next slide, please. Both, yes. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of data from ChargePoint. We've noticed most drivers do use our EV charging stations as intended with about 3.5 hours or fewer. It's right a 3-hour limit most of the time. But we also have data that indicates several are plugged in for more than 10 hours. So this histogram shows that. And they're essentially getting a free charge from the city. Next slide, please. We also know that EV ownership is increasing really dramatically in our community. And also our public EV charging station usage is increasing. There's really high demand for these spaces. So staff recommends charging, like I mentioned, per kilowatt hour for electricity to power electric vehicles at public charging stations. In the past, under our current model, we earned just under $2,500 in 1 year from this system that we have now, and under the proposed model, we would earn $2,500 a month. So charging 15 cents a kilowatt hour would bring more sustainable revenue source to expand our public EV charging network. There's research also included in the packet comparing what other communities and institutions do in terms of charging. A lot of variation between hourly rates, kilowatt hour rates, but staff again recommends a kilowatt hour rate. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the team for this. I think we're saying that this will bring in about $30,000 a year, which, do we have any idea of what we might want to commit those funds to, or?
I would recommend that these funds would go back into both the cloud service for maintaining our charge point charging stations that we have now, as well as expanding to offer more public EV charging in places like the Levy Center, for example. There's been a lot of interest, but we don't have any chargers there now. So expanding our public network and our cloud service.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. So we'll be bringing in about $30,000 a year with this, but are we making a profit from this? Or are we covering, or am I getting this wrong?
Right now we operate in the red. We don't break even with our costs to maintain our program versus how much we charge for charging.
And with this, we
most certainly would cover the costs of our cloud service, and then it would depend on the decision making, how many charging stations we would install. So we could choose to just break even or continue to operate in the red if we wanted to really expand our charging stations. But also the fiscal year 2023 budget included a line item for public EV charging stations at, I believe, $100,000 in the CIP.
I would like to see us charge an amount that makes us competitive with the private market, essentially. I think it's great that we would encourage folks to buy electric vehicles by subsidizing their their use of electricity, but I think about the price point for most electric vehicles still today. I think about particularly, I'm sure if we looked at the breakdown of electric vehicles in Evanston, they're more likely, majority of them are likely luxury electric vehicles, I presume. If there's data that proves me wrong, please let me know. So I think this is a group that can bear to pay the full cost and really feel the full weight of their environmental impact, even with using an electric vehicle. And then we can use those funds to invest more. And I'd love to see some of those profits go into more mobility and making the city more bike friendly. Electric vehicles are great, but a bike and walking and everything else is a whole lot better. So, thank you.
Next, I have Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm ready to start charging for charging as well. I think it made a lot of sense, when the electric vehicle industry was in its, kind of infancy 5-10 years ago. I'm not even sure how long we've been doing this, but quite some time, to do whatever we could to, encourage folks to move in that direction. But, with the increasing number of electric vehicles on the market, we can't keep giving away the juice for free. If I'm reading the packet correctly, the electricity itself costs about 5 cents a kilowatt hour. The proposal is to charge 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which would pay for the electricity, but also pay for the infrastructure, not only what currently exists, but allow us to expand. I just want to clarify that what we're talking about here is our public chargers. It's not every charger in town. Do we have any information on how many chargers we have in town that aren't public?
I know that there's at least a Tesla supercharger that's in a public facility, but would only be open to Tesla owners. And then there's a few stations at Walgreens. Anything else?
Yeah. A handful. Okay. And so these are ChargePoint. That's the company that owns and operates and maintains them. We pay ChargePoint a certain amount of money per year to maintain these. Right, and so if we start charging 15 cents per kilowatt hour, we'll pay for the electricity and be able to pay for that maintenance and pay for the expansion of the fleet of chargers. My only concern about 15 cents is if we're looking at what other communities are doing, around the world or around the country, the average price was 15 cents per kilowatt hour, but a little bit closer to home, our good friends in Oak Park and Wilmette are still offering free electricity to people there. And I'm not super enthusiastic about encouraging people to go anywhere other than downtown Evanston or maybe one of our other business districts.
Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for this detailed report. So I think, and I'm reading all the numbers, but I think it would be helpful to see sort of a total bottom line because I'm having a hard time getting that exactly, so if we do this, what it will cost, how much we'd be in the red if we don't, and where we'd stand, unless I'm missing this. But this is really detailed, so I appreciate it, if that's possible. And then I do think we need to look, down the line at how we can promote the use of electric cars to our lower income community and look at what other communities are doing to be able to make that possible. So, I don't know how this will, eventually, hopefully this will find a way to make this work for that also, but I think down the road. I know some communities are doing things where the cities resell their electric vehicles at a very reduced price in order to promote the use among lower income communities. So it would be nice if we worked out a plan for, not now, but within some years, how we're going to promote that among other communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Reed.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond to one thing that Councilmember Kelly said before I go down to my point, which is I think in the future we don't want to necessarily, I think we want to move even further away from personal ownership of vehicles, and we don't necessarily want to push low-income folks into using electric vehicles. I think we want to make our city walkable and expand public transit and make those investments. Are there communities that have a so when Tesla, I think that's the supercharge stations are free for Tesla owners, correct? Or do we know that? I believe
Yes,
they
I
are.
believe so. It's a part of ownership, I think.
So I'm just curious, do we collect revenue on that exchange, other than, I guess?
Good evening, members of the committee. Mike Rivera, Interim Administrative Services Director. Yes, so the Tesla supercharging stations, there is 12 supercharging stations at the 1800 Maple parking garage. When a parker comes to the parking garage, they will pay the transient rate unless they have a monthly membership for the garage, and then the charging is between them and Tesla. Either it's part of the ownership of the vehicle, or I believe some of the early models you may have to enter into a subscription-based agreement with them, but that would be between Tesla and the client.
Okay. And are there communities, do we know of communities that, charge in a similar manner that we have a motor fuel tax, that charge a tax on?
I do not have that data currently.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember, were you done?
I'll add too that Tesla did pay for the infrastructure upgrade required for that, and then pays for electricity as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma.
I was just going to ask the question that would elicit the answer that Kara just gave. If we could put a number on it, I believe it was $300,000. Right. Okay. So zero cost to Evanston, but $300,000 that Tesla paid for.
the investment in installing the new infrastructure.
To install the chargers and the necessary electric infrastructure for the superchargers. Yeah.
Thank you.
No other questions?
So do I understand then that the committee would like staff to craft an ordinance to modify the city code to identify this parking structure for EV stations? Just wanted to clarify that.
Councilmember Reed?
My response to that would be yes.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to do what Manager Stonebeck just said, which is that staff prepare an ordinance in line with the recommendations that were put forth today by our Environmental Sustainability Coordinator, soon to be manager.
Councilmember Reed moved and Councilmember Nusma seconded. Can I have a roll call? I guess I could do
A voice vote.
I could do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, it passes. At this time, is there any items for communication from council members? No? Okay, I call for the adjournment of the Administration and Public Works Committee meeting at 5:52. 8 P&D will start at 6:15, and we're going to enter, okay, I need the mayor. We're going to do a presentation in a few moments.
Well, good evening, and welcome to a special presentation that I have the honor of making in between our two committee hearings. Last Thursday evening, I had the pleasure of attending a really inspiring ceremony over at the ETHS auditorium. It was the distribution of the African American Youth Achievement Awards to students in both District 65 and 202 schools, two young people from each District 65 school, as well as I think about 8, I guess 2 per grade from ETHS. It was just a wonderful evening. These extraordinary, talented scholars and citizens and students and athletes with their families and with their teachers and usually administrators from their school who just could not say enough about the phenomenal achievements of these young folks. And I commented that night, we're in a world where there's a lot of negativity, particularly, I think, throughout this country's history, negativity directed squarely at the black community. And in the face of that negativity, there's such achievement, such resilience, and such spirit in this community here in Evanston of giving back and doing good. And it was just really a joy to see this extraordinary group of young people. And they said that they were willing to come and accept a recognition here in the City Council chambers, which I'm appreciative of because I think the whole community deserves to see what great things are happening in our schools and what great things our young people are doing. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Ms. Denise Martin for the work that you've done to make this ceremony such a special occasion for so many. I want to thank Councilmember Chrissy Harris, who played an enormous role as well. And before we get started with the presentation, Councilmember Harris, do you want to add some comments?
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being the awesome students that you are. You are part of our community. We are very proud of what you're doing right now and what you're going to do in the future. And I think I've said that before, that you're not our future, you're our right now. So we want to pour into you as a city council as much as we can to congratulate you. So congratulations and keep up the good work, okay? You promise to do that? Okay.
Let the records show I saw some nodding heads. So there's some promises to do that, and I have no doubt that's the case. So I'm going to read out the names of the young people who are recipients of the Youth Achievement Awards. When I'm finished reading through the names, the recipients will come up here and we'll do a little presentation and photo as well. But first, there's Ashadia Adabi, then Bisola Adani, Tiffany Arthurs, Evan Bell, Jana Cabrera. Sorry, I'm not sure who all is here and who's not, and I know that not everyone could make it, so I'll go a little bit slower. But as I read folks' names, just come up and join us up here if you would. So I'm very bad at giving instructions. I used to be a teacher, and then I knew how to give instructions, and it all just sort of fell apart over the years. So I think we just read Jana Cabrera's name, and then Anaya Chewbacca, Haley Sybil. I'm so sorry, Haley. Come on up. Thanks, and I'm sorry, Haley Seibel.
You can turn around. Turn around, face us.
Nice. Well done, thank you. Oh, you want to block me. It looks much better if I'm blocked, trust me. Jaron Davis. Kennedy Lee Dillard. Sean Foreman. Christina Gomez. Peyton Goodnight Taylor. Justin Henry. Casey Houston. Thanks for joining us. Jeremiah Hudson. Kania Hunt. Skylar Tristan Lee. Aiden Pruitt Levy. Jeremy Wesley Marshall. Sir Elon McKinney. Joshua McPherson. Darasimi Ogunkola. Jesse Paddyfoot. Tristan Payton. Soleil Reed Brown. Anaya Milan Roan. Brandon Jamal Rosemond. And Nigel Timothy Shelton. Serenity Smith. Ari Sushinsky. Yep, coming up. Bitania Tesfamichael. Micah Thompson. Jaden Watson. Aaliyah Ray and Teen Wihalia. Landon Wellington. Nora Afric Williams. And Miles Wright. Would you all join me in giving a giant round of applause to this extraordinary group of African American Youth Achievement Awardees?
Josh? Oh, I'll get a picture with Josh.